They fined me $750 for unauthorized signage because my daughter's lemonade stand used a hand-painted board on our front lawn. I called their bluff, quoted the exact clause, and 3 days later, their patrol cars rolled up to arrest a 10-year-old. Welcome to HOA Society. My name's Ryan Caldwell. I'm a county compliance officer in North Texas. Yeah, that means I know codes, permits, and paper trails better than most people who wave them in my face. If you're into seeing HOAs overstep and get politely dismantled, you're in the right place. Take a second to subscribe before you forget, and tell me where you're watching from, because I promise, somewhere near you, a board like this is doing the same thing. It started with a photo. A neighbor sent it. My daughter Lily, holding her sign, 2 patrol officers from the HOA security committee standing behind her, one of them writing on a tablet. Violation. Commercial activity. Sycamore 4.7b. I remember the heat of that July day, the sound of her plastic table legs creaking on the driveway, the way the lemon slices bobbed in the pitcher when she tried not to cry. I lost my wife 2 summers earlier to breast cancer. Lily's stand had her name painted in pink, the same shade her mother loved. It wasn't about money. She made $12 in 2 hours. It was about a promise that our home would stay ours, not some sterile box governed by people who saw rules before faces. That evening, I knocked on the door of our HOA president, Todd Granger, mid-40s, golf tan, white polo embroidered with River Glen Estates. His garage was a museum of lawn tools arranged like trophies. It's policy, he said, smirking. We can't make exceptions. Commercial activity is commercial activity. Even if it's for cancer awareness? I asked. He tapped the clipboard against his thigh. If we start letting feelings run the bylaws, we won't have a commune. He left. That line, so clean, so heartless, stayed with me. I didn't yell. I thanked him, went home, poured coffee that tasted like metal, and opened the digital CCR binder they loved quoting. 86 pages of contradictions, amendments, and lazy copy-paste from a developer manual last updated in 2002. By midnight, I had a list of 17 procedural errors. Granger's board had filed amendments without the required 75% homeowner approval. They'd merged the HOA patrol under a security vendor whose license had lapsed 6 months prior. Knowledge nugget number 1. Under Texas Property Code, RR 209.004, any HOA amendment not properly filed with county records is unenforceable, meaning half their rules had no legal pulse. The next morning, I requested copies of all violation notices issued since January. The property manager, Cheryl, blinked hard. We'll need to check with the board, she said. I smiled. Under open records provisions, you've got 5 business days. I time-stamped her response on my phone. That was Tuesday. By Friday, Granger's emails started dripping into my inbox, each one more nervous than the last. Mr. Caldwell, perhaps we can settle this amicably. I said nothing. I wanted the pattern. I wanted every date, every signature. A week later, the mailbox held a new envelope. Notice of non-compliance, property maintenance. They cited me for grass height exceeding 4 inches. I measured 3.75. That was the moment I understood this wasn't enforcement, it was retaliation. I started a binder. Lily case file. Tabs for each notice, photo, statute, and email. I used my work scanner to digitize everything, naming files by date and section number. I wasn't building a complaint, I was building an audit trail. That night, Lily asked, "Did I do something bad?" I said, "No, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups get scared when someone reminds them of the rules they're supposed to follow." The next HOA meeting was open forum. I showed up early, sleeves rolled, no tie. The smell of carpet cleaner and burnt coffee filled the rec center. Granger sat flanked by his 2 allies, both with folded arms. When it was my turn, I spoke softly. You fined a child for honoring her mother. You've issued 112 violations this quarter, 73 of them procedural nullities. Gasps fluttered through the 30 or so homeowners. Granger leaned forward. Are you threatening this board? I held up a document. Just showing you your own filings. Half of these amendments never made it to the county clerk. The room buzzed. He turned red. You don't understand how governance works." "Oh, I do," I said. "I write compliance reports for a living." I left before they could adjourn. On the walk home, the gravel under my boots crunched louder than usual. I wasn't angry anymore. I was methodical. 3 nights later, my porch camera caught a patrol car idling outside for 23 minutes. The next morning, another citation appeared. Unauthorized exterior lighting, Section 9.1. The bulb they meant? A porch light. At that point, I started recording every encounter, all under one-party consent, fully compliant in Texas. I knew they'd keep escalating, and I was counting on it. By the end of August, I'd logged 17 citations in 21 days. Trash bins visible, mailbox flag unpainted, a wellness check at 2:14 a.m. that left Lily sobbing under her blanket. The pattern wasn't random, it was a siege. I filed a harassment report with Denton County Sheriff's Office and logged every entry into a spreadsheet that tracked time, officer name, and ordinance reference. When Granger's crew realized I was documenting them, they tried charm. Cheryl left a voicemail dripping with concern. "Ryan, you're such a valuable member of Riverglen. Let's just clear this up privately." I guess you chived it. In my line of work, every smile can be evidence. By Labor Day, I'd memorized their bylaws better than their board had. Section 12.2, Inspection Rights. Section 8.6, Vendor Renewal. Section 5.3, Voting Quorum. The HOA's insurance bond was due for renewal in November, but their coverage required certified compliance for all amendments. I marked that date with a red sticky tab. That night, I drove to the county recorder's office. The clerk, Margie, glasses on a beaded chain, helped me pull the original plat maps. "Funny," she said, flipping through pages. "Your HOA boundaries don't match what's filed." The southern third, including my street, was technically part of the developer's retained parcel. My taxes went to the city, not the HOA. That was when the first real click happened, the kind that settles in your chest. They'd been enforcing rules on homes they didn't legally govern. I spent 2 days verifying every line, cross-checked lot numbers, meets and bounds, recorded easements. Then I called an old friend, Mark Holland, a real estate attorney who still wore his cufflinks backward and kept coffee in a dented thermos. "Ryan," he said after a pause, "if they've been assessing fees outside their boundary, that's unauthorized collection, possibly fraud." I asked what proof he'd need. Chain of title, parcel map, and any correspondence showing they claim jurisdiction. You get me those, I'll get you leverage. So I did. 3 nights later, I slid the packet across his desk, 94 pages clipped in blue binder tabs. Knowledge nugget number 2. Under Texas Business Commerce Code, Firearms 17.46, misrepresentation of authority in collecting dues can trigger civil penalties and attorney's fees. Mark leaned back. "You realize what this means? They've been fining and patrolling land they don't own the rights to." "I realize," I said, "but I'm not ready to go nuclear yet. I wanted them comfortable. I wanted them arrogant." The next open meeting was September 15th. I sat quietly in the back. Granger was in rare form, power tie, smug grin. "We're proud to announce record enforcement this quarter," he said. "Compliance has never been higher." Someone in the crowd whispered, "Or people are just scared." He ignored it. Midway through, he proposed a special assessment of $400 per home for security enhancements. No prior vote, no advance notice. My pulse slowed. This was it, the overreach I needed. Under state law, any special assessment exceeding 10% of the annual budget requires 67% homeowner approval. They had 0. I didn't speak. I recorded the motion, time-stamped, documented. After the meeting, I saw Cheryl slip an envelope into my mailbox. Inside, notice of intent to lien, unpaid assessments. Amount, $1,250. Due in 10 days. They were fast. Too fast. The next morning, I met my neighbor Evelyn Ross, retired school principal, 72, hair like spun silver. She'd seen the patrol car at my driveway. "They did this to my late husband," she said quietly. "He fought them over a flagpole. Died before it came down." She handed me his old binder, meticulous notes, letters, receipts. I flipped through the last page. They're bluffing, always were. That night I created a new LLC, Maple Bend Holdings, anonymous, registered agent in Austin. Through it I purchased a small utility easement that cut through River Glen Central Park, a 12-foot strip the HOA used for irrigation control. The seller? The original developer, still holding forgotten rights. That easement gave me access to their main electrical junction box, and according to statute, the holder of that easement had inspection and maintenance rights as necessary for continued service. I didn't tell a soul. Instead, I watched them pile on. Daily patrols, social posts calling me the troublemaker, even a whisper that child protective. Services had concerns. None of it stuck because every message, every notice went into the binder. Mid-September evenings in Texas carry that dry heat that feels like baked brick. I sat on my porch, Lily asleep inside, reviewing parcel maps under the porch light they once called unauthorized. If you've ever dealt with an HOA like this, you know the smell, burnt toner and cheap cologne in windowless rooms. Are you firmly anti-HOA, or have you ever faced one like this? Drop a tactic in the comments that helped you push back, or leave a message for the ones watching from the boardrooms. I knew my next move had to be timed to the insurance renewal. November 1st. That gave me 43 days. So I started a countdown. 43 days sounded long until you started marking them in red ink. Each morning before work, I'd flip the kitchen calendar and cross another square. October 1st, 2-3, like watching a fuse burn slow. Every citation they sent became another nail for their own board. Unauthorized patio furniture, unapproved seasonal decor, even improper tone in communication, whatever that meant. Their language had grown manic. By mid-October, I'd compiled a 90-page dossier with photos, timestamps, meter readings, and homeowner testimonies. Evelyn helped me gather signatures, 15 in 2 days, from residents tired of being billed for nonsense. We met one night in her garage, surrounded by old campaign posters from when her husband had run for the city council. She kept an oscillating fan running even though it was cold. "You sure you're ready to go public?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "They're still digging their own trench." That trench got deeper when Cheryl emailed a mandatory compliance meeting notice, scheduled for October 12th, weekday afternoon, during work hours. Classic move. Hold the vote when no one can attend. I filed an open records request, hit the city for their permits on the security enhancements. Within 48 hours, I had confirmation. No permit applications existed. 0. Knowledge nugget number 3. Any HOA installing fixed surveillance or lighting systems tied into municipal utilities requires an electrical permit and city inspection. Skipping that can trigger code violations and void insurance coverage. So, on October 13th, I sent a polite certified letter. To the Board of River Glen Estates, please provide evidence of permit issuance for proposed security installations under Texas Administrative Code 473.6e. Failure to do so may affect your insurer's renewal eligibility. The effect was immediate. Granger called my office line the next morning, voice tight with false calm. "Ryan, can we meet for coffee? Off the record." I declined. "Anything you have to say can be in writing." That evening, Lily's bike tires hissed down the driveway as the sun dipped. She braked, cheeks flushed. "Dad, they told me I can't ride past the clubhouse anymore. Said it's private." I looked over. A new HOA patrol sign stood on the corner. The arrogance was breathtaking. "Tell you what," I said, kneeling to her level. "You stay on the sidewalk. The law says sidewalks belong to the public." I said it loud enough for the patrol officer idling nearby to hear. That night, I added a new tab in the binder. Public easement conflicts. If they were claiming control of city sidewalks, that was another overreach. My friend Mark, the attorney, stopped by the next day with a bag of gas station donuts. He laid out the law like he was dealing cards. "They're crossing jurisdictional lines, Ryan. We can send a cease and desist right now." "Too early," I said. "They still think they're untouchable." He grinned. "You're baiting them." "Just waiting for the right hook." The following weekend, Evelyn organized a small cookout. Half community event, half quiet rebellion. No flyers, no agenda. Just neighbors bringing casseroles and stories. By dusk, 30 people showed. Some, Gon joked, will probably get fined for breathing. Laughter carried through the cul-de-sac like a spark that didn't die. When Granger's SUV slowed by the curb, people waved. He didn't stop. The next morning, his newsletter appeared in everyone's inbox. Unauthorized gatherings. Please remember, any public use of HOA common areas requires prior approval. We'd hosted it on my driveway. That small victory reminded me that defiance can be gentle and still count. But I also knew what was coming. Retaliation, louder this time. On October 17th, a white envelope arrived, thicker than usual. Inside, notice of covenant violation, fence color non-compliance. Attached photo showed my cedar fence, the exact same shade as 10 others on the street. It wasn't about color, it was about pressure. That night, Evelyn brought hot cocoa and sat on the porch. "They're scared," she said, stirring her cup. "People like that only get mean when they feel the ground move." I nodded. "Then we're close." We were 20 days out from the insurance renewal, and they'd yet to file a single permit. Sometimes revenge isn't an explosion. It's gravity doing its job. Before heading in for bed, I looked at Lily's drawing taped to the fridge. Our house, her lemonade stand, her mom smiling beside us. That was the real map. The rest was paperwork. And since I know some of you watching this have had a similar neighbor war, tell me, how far should an HOA control your property? Your porch, your lawn, your kids' toys? Where's the line? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. Next morning, I emailed Mark and said, "Time to tighten the net." He replied with 2 words. "Clock starts." The clock started October 18th at 8 o'clock a.m. sharp. I drove to the county courthouse, the air thick with the smell of rain-soaked asphalt and printer toner from the copy shop next door. By noon, I'd filed 2 open complaints. One with the city's building inspection department regarding unpermitted electrical work, and another with the state's Department of Licensing about Riverglen's so-called security contractor. Both accepted, both public record. By October 20th, the ripples reached the board. Cheryl's emails turned frantic. Subject lines like urgent, insurance verification needed, and permit inquiry, immediate response required. I knew they were feeling the pressure. Meanwhile, I spent the evenings cross-referencing the HOA's financial statements from the last quarterly report. That's when I noticed a peculiar line item. Contracted maintenance services, $9,480. The payee? Granger Property Solutions, LLC, Todd's own side business. Knowledge nugget number 4, under Texas Nonprofit Corporation. Act Part 22.230, board members must recuse themselves from any contract yielding personal benefit. Failure to disclose is a conflict of interest, grounds for removal. I called Mark. "How deep does that statute cut?" "Pretty deep," he said, chewing on something. "If he didn't disclose, it's not just unethical, it's illegal. And if you can tie those funds to misrepresentation, the insurer's going to flinch." "Good," I said, "because November's coming fast." The next HOA meeting was October 24th. I sat again in the back row, cap pulled low. Granger looked rattled, shirt untucked, under-eye circles deep as tax liens. The board's treasurer mumbled about increased operational costs. Someone in the audience asked about the inspection permits. Granger snapped, "We're in full compliance." I almost laughed. I already had the city's written confirmation, no applications filed. When the floor opened for homeowner comments, I stood. "Todd," I said calmly, "how much does your company make from maintenance services here?" The room froze. He blinked fast. "Excuse me?" "Granger Property Solutions. $9,480 last quarter. Conflict of interest unless you disclosed it." A murmur spread through the chairs. He straightened, trying to recover. "That's irrelevant to tonight's agenda." "No," I said. "It's the entire agenda." People started whispering. "He's paying himself. Is that even allowed?" I walked out before the gavel hit the table. The cool night air outside felt cleaner than it had in months. The gravel under my shoes popped with each step like punctuation marks. The next morning, I woke to 3 new citations in my inbox. They didn't even bother pretending anymore. Improperly stacked firewood, unapproved holiday decor, excessive mailbox shine. That last one made me laugh out loud. Still, retaliation stings when it's home. Lily asked if we should move. I told her, "No, honey, we just need to finish something that's already halfway done." By late October, my binder had outgrown its rings. I bought a file box instead. Gray, metal latch, numbered tabs. Visual beat number 1. I remember snapping it shut that night. The echo sounded like a verdict. On October 26th, I met Inspector Jeff Morales, a city code officer with coffee breath and a nervous smile. He reviewed the unpermitted installations and agreed to visit Riverglen's clubhouse the following week. "If it's true they skipped permits," he said, "their insurer won't touch renewal." That's what I needed, a neutral authority. I circled November 1st, 9 a.m. on my whiteboard, the moment everything would tip. But before that, they'd make one last mistake. October 28th, 6:47 p.m., doorbell camera caught Granger himself walking up my drive, clipboard in hand. He peered through my window, tried the doorknob. Trespass. Recorded. Time-stamped. Undeniable. I texted Mark. "Got him on camera. Audio too." He replied, "Do not engage. File report tomorrow. This seals it." And it did. I turned off the porch light and sat in the dark, listening to the cicadas outside, heart steady. Revenge had turned into procedure. A lot of you watching might think, why not just sue? But that's the easy out, and the expensive one. Tell me this. If you discovered your HOA president was pocketing your dues through shell contracts, would you go straight to court, or would you gather leverage first? I'm curious where you draw that line. At midnight, I uploaded everything to a secure drive. Every photo, every citation, every second of video. The countdown read 4 days. 4 days left, and the HOA patrol cars had doubled. Every night, 2 of them idled at opposite ends of the street, lights off, engines ticking. I could hear the low hum through the walls, like a refrigerator that never stopped running. October 29th, Sunday evening, I came home to find 2 uniformed officers, HOA security, not police, standing in my yard with flashlights. One of them held a clipboard. "Routine inspection," he said. "Of my grass?" I asked, stepping closer. "Of your perimeter lighting." "That's a porch bulb," I said, flicking it off. "You want to cite darkness too?" He smirked. "We can note non-compliance." I hit record on my phone, casually. Texas one-party consent. "You're aware this is private property, right?" He turned pale. "We're authorized by Riverglen Estates." "Riverglen doesn't have jurisdiction here," I said. "Parcel 17B is exempt from HOA boundaries. Recorded deed, county file number 01-38245. You're trespassing." They left without another word, gravel spitting under their tires. That night, I could feel the fear I'd kept buried start to edge through. Not fear for me. Fear for Lily. Because these weren't rational people anymore. They were desperate. I called Evelyn, told her I might need her to take Lily for a few nights if things escalated. "Of course," she said. "I still have the guest room, and the dog loves company." That small kindness steadied me. By October 30th, the HOA's retaliation turned digital. Chipulshes. STS in the neighborhood Facebook group about uncooperative residents endangering community unity. My name wasn't listed, but the comments weren't subtle. Some people think they're above the rules. "We should call CPS again." I screenshotted every one. The next morning, my mailbox held a thick packet. Notice of intent to foreclose. They'd fabricated a lien for unpaid dues totaling $3,050. I laughed bitterly. "Desperation has a smell," I told Mark over the phone. He sighed. "Classic bluff. No court will touch it, but document it anyway." I already have. Then came the lowest point. Halloween night. Lily had dressed as a sheriff, her idea, not mine, complete with a plastic badge and hat. We were halfway down the block when a patrol car slowed beside us. The driver rolled down his window, smirking. "Cute costume. Hope she knows her dad's under investigation." Lily looked up at me, eyes wide. "What does that mean, Dad?" I kept walking, hand tight around hers. "It means some people forget what the law's for." When we got home, she cried. I sat with her until she fell asleep, then went outside and stood in the dark. The patrol car had gone, but the smell of exhaust lingered. That's when it hit me. Not anger, not fear, but clarity. I'd been defending myself piecemeal. It was time to finish this. The next morning, October 31st, I filed a trespass report with Denton County. Attached were the video stills, the audio, the violation of boundary map, and the fabricated lien notice. The deputy who took the report, Officer Leland, recognized my address immediately. "Riverglen Estates?" he said. "You're not the first." He handed me a card. "If they step on your lawn again, call dispatch. We'll handle it." Halloween candy wrappers still littered the street when I drove to work that morning. I kept thinking about Lily's costume, the irony of it all. Sheriff badge, plastic, but honest than anything those patrolmen wore. If you're watching this and you've ever been hit with a bogus HOA lien or citation, you know how helpless it feels. But tell me this, what's worse, a $250 fine for nonsense, or a board that weaponizes the rules against you? Drop your answer below, or at least like the video so more people see what community enforcement really looks like. That night, the weather turned. Heavy rain, wind snapping the mailbox flag back and forth. At 11:42 p.m., I got an email from Cheryl marked confidential. "Mr. Caldwell, please be advised that the board will be reviewing your case at an emergency session tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Clubhouse." Perfect timing. Same hour the city inspector was scheduled to verify permits. I replied simply, "I'll be there." Then I added one more thing. I printed a single-page document and slipped it into my briefcase. The assignment of easement rights. Signed, notarized, recorded. My secret leverage. Visual beat number 2 was already forming in my head. A table, a crowd, and a single stamped deed landing like thunder. November 1st, 8:45 a.m. The rain had eased into a steady mist that made everything look like it was wrapped in wax paper. The clubhouse parking lot gleamed with puddles under the gray sky. I parked beside the curb, briefcase on the seat next to me, heartbeat perfectly calm. Inside, the meeting room smelled like damp carpet and burnt coffee. About 20 homeowners sat scattered in folding chairs, murmuring. Granger stood at the front beside Cheryl, hair slicked back, suit slightly too shiny. A flag leaned awkwardly in the corner, drooping from humidity. He started the session with practiced authority. "We're here to address the ongoing non-compliance of Mr. Caldwell at Lot 17B. His repeated refusal to cooperate has left this board no choice but to initiate foreclosure proceedings under our covenants." Someone in the back whispered, "Is that then legal?" Granger ignored it. "We have counsel reviewing his violations." "Do they include trespassing?" I asked from the doorway. Every head turned. I stepped inside, shaking rain off my jacket. "Because I've already filed a report." He smirked. "This isn't a court, Mr. Caldwell." "Good," I said, "because courts require evidence." I set my briefcase on the table and clicked the latches open, metal snapping clean, echoing through the room. I pulled out a single folder and slid it forward. Certified deed transfer, county file number 0138246. As of September 22nd, Maple Bend Holdings, LLC, my company, owns the utility easement beneath your Central Park and irrigation controls. A ripple of confusion spread through the room. Cheryl leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said evenly, "your sprinkler system, lighting, and security cameras all draw power through land I now own. And as of 9 a.m. this morning, your insurer is receiving a notice that those installations lack both permits and valid easement rights." The door opened behind me. Inspector Morales stepped in, shaking rain from his clipboard. "Sorry I'm late," he said to no one in particular. "Here to verify permit documentation for the Riverglen surveillance upgrades." Every board member went still. Granger stammered, We filed those." Morales raised a hand. "You didn't. I've already checked the city database. None on record." He flipped a page. "That's a violation of Electrical Code 110.3b. I'll be issuing a stop work and safety notice." Silence. I looked at Granger. "You were saying something about foreclosure?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The homeowners started whispering, louder this time. One woman said, "My dues paid for that." Another shouted, "Are we insured right now?" Morales turned to me. "You the complainant?" "Yes, sir." He nodded. "Good timing. Say, vest me another trip." He signed the form and handed me a copy. Neutral authority, on paper. I laid the notice on the table beside the deed. Effective immediately, any further use of the HOA's patrol lights, security feeds, or irrigation controls on that easement is trespassing on private utility land. Granger's face drained to chalk. You can't do this." "I already did," I said, legally, quietly, and well within my rights. Then came the sound I'd been waiting for, the low rustle of homeowners murmuring not in confusion, but in realization. The room shifted from his control to mine in seconds. Visual beat number 2 landed exactly as I pictured. A stamped deed on cheap laminate, the inspector's pen still glistening with ink. Granger tried one last gasp. "You're hurting the whole community." "No," I said. "I'm protecting it from you." Mark, my attorney, entered just then, flipping open his phone to record. "For the minutes," he said smoothly. "Mr. Caldwell's ownership of the easement and Inspector Morales' citation are now matters of public record." Cheryl sat down hard, eyes glassy. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The silence did all the talking. When it ended, Morales handed Granger a yellow notice slip, "Stop work order number 2217, and walked out into the drizzle. The door shut softly behind him, like punctuation on a confession. Outside, I exhaled for the first time in weeks. My phone buzzed. Mark texting. "That's your first reversal locked." He was right. Reversal number 1 secured. The power, literal and figurative, was mine now. But I knew better than to think it was over. Power hates a vacuum. The next day would bring the headlines, the insurers panic, the boards collapse. But for now, the rain on my windshield felt like applause muted by glass. Since I know some of you are watching this in neighborhoods just like mine, here's a thought to argue about in the comments. When HOA boards lie or break their own laws, should they face criminal charges or just removal? What precedent should we set for those who misuse authority? The sky cleared as I drove home. Lily's drawing still hung on the fridge when I walked in. I tapped the plastic badge from her costume and smiled. "Guess we showed him what a real sheriff looks like, kiddo." By November 2nd, word had spread faster than I could keep up. The Denton County Gazette ran a small column titled, "HOA Faces Permit Scandal Amid Easement Dispute." It wasn't sensational, but it was enough. The insurer froze their renewal pending investigation, and the HOA's bank put a hold on outgoing payments over $500. Granger called me at 6:15 a.m. His voice sounded like gravel soaked in whiskey. "Ryan, we can fix this if you just release the easement." "Release?" I repeated. "You mean the one you built half your surveillance grid on without legal authority?" He lowered his voice. "Look, off the record, I can make the fines disappear. All of them." I almost laughed. "Todd, I don't want your money. I want your bylaws to follow the law." Click. He hung up. By noon, Evelyn texted. "They're panicking." A group of neighbors gathered in her yard, comparing notes. Someone brought coffee, someone else a stack of old newsletters proving vote tampering. I showed them the stop work order Morales had issued. "You just saved every homeowner's liability," I told them. "If an uninsured patrol car had hit a kid, you'd all be paying for it." The collective gasp that followed was the sound of the dominoes starting to fall. By the next board meeting, scheduled for November 5th, we had 18 signatures demanding a full audit and emergency election. The bylaws required only 10. When the meeting started, Granger's chair was empty. Cheryl ran the show, hands shaking as she read from a printed statement. "Due to unforeseen legal complexities, Mr. Granger has temporarily stepped down as president." Temporary. Sure. Then came the part I hadn't expected. 3 homeowners I barely knew stood up and started thanking me. Evelyn cried quietly in the back. I caught her eye and she mouthed, "Told you gravity works." But just as relief settled in, Cheryl tried a last-minute pivot. "However, we must note that Mr. Caldwell's actions may have exposed the association to liability and—" "Stop," I said, standing. "You're welcome to finish that sentence, but it'll become Exhibit A in the defamation suit." Her lips trembled. She set the paper down. Then from the back, a man's voice. "So what happens now?" I turned. "Now we rebuild." That line hung there. No theatrics, no applause, just quiet recognition. 2 days later, the city published its official report. River Glen Estates HOA found in violation of electrical code. Immediate remediation required. Morales's signature sat neatly at the bottom. I printed 3 copies, one for the binder, one for Mark, one for Lily's scrapbook someday. Then came the domino collapse proper. Granger's contracting company was blacklisted by the insurer. The HOA's account froze completely when their treasurer resigned. Homeowners filed for a temporary restraining order against enforcement activity until a new board could be elected. Mark called, laughing softly. "You did it without setting foot in court." "Not done yet," I said. "They'll bargain before they break." He chuckled. "Then bargain smart." November 10th, a certified envelope arrived at my door. Inside, a proposal. Mutual resolution and reform agreement. They offered to void all citations, reimburse fees, and formally amend the bylaws. In return, I'd transfer back the easement rights. I read the list twice. It included exactly what I'd hoped for. Term limits for all board members, max 2 consecutive terms, transparent voting and open records policy for all homeowners. Quarterly financial disclose. OSHA's verified by an independent auditor. Fee rollback of 15% for the next fiscal year. Creation of an independent ethics committee. Reversal number 2 was on the table. But I didn't sign immediately. I wanted one more thing, something symbolic. I wrote in an additional clause, "The playground near Lot 17B shall be renamed Lily's Park, dedicated to community kindness and remembrance." 2 days later, they agreed. If you're still with me, tell me this in the comments. When a corrupt board finally folds, what matters more? Punishing them, or reforming the system so it never happens again? I genuinely want to know how you'd handle that line between justice and mercy. The reform deal would be signed in public, with the inspector, a city clerk, and a local reporter present, a clean ending to a dirty fight. That night, I walked the quiet street. The HOA patrol cars were gone. The air smelled of cedar and rain. For the first time in months, my porch light burned freely without a single complaint. Tomorrow, we'd make it official. November 12th, 10 o'clock a.m. The sun broke through after a week of gray, slicing over the clubhouse parking lot like a spotlight on an empty stage. I arrived early, file box under one arm, Lily holding my hand. She wore her sheriff badge again, the plastic one, taped at the back where it had cracked. Inside, the room had been rearranged. No more dais separating the board from the homeowners. Just one long folding table and 2 rows of chairs. Morales, the inspector, stood near the window jotting notes. Evelyn waved from the front row, thermos in hand. Mark leaned against the wall, looking half amused, half proud. Cheryl cleared her throat. This special session is for the signing of the reform agreement between River Glen Estates HOA and Mr. Ryan Caldwell. She sounded small, like a radio turned down to half volume. I stepped forward, placed the bind there on the table, and opened it one last time. Each section, citations, trespass reports, maps, photos, was neatly tabbed and labeled. It looked more like an archive than a weapon now. "This isn't about me," I said, addressing the room. "It's about the people who live here and deserve fairness, not fear. My wife and I bought this house because we wanted Lily to grow up in a place that meant community. Somewhere along the line, we lost that. Today we take it back." Morales nodded once, approving. The clerk passed the papers around for signatures. Granger wasn't there. He'd resigned officially that morning. Cheryl's hand shook as she signed, but she did it. When the last signature hit the page, I reached into my briefcase and slid the deed transfer for the easement across the table. "As agreed," I said. Click of a pen cap. Thud of paper. Balance restored. Visual beat number 3. The stamped reform agreement on the table beside a child's plastic sheriff badge glinting in the morning light. Afterward, the homeowners gathered outside for coffee and donuts Evelyn had brought. Kids ran circles around the swing set. The new sign was already waiting under a tarp. Morales helped me pull it off. Lily's Park, dedicated to kindness and courage. The applause wasn't loud, but it was warm. Mark clapped me on the shoulder. "You realize you just set a precedent for half the county?" "Good," I said. "Maybe they'll think twice before fining another kid for being decent." Later that week, the Gazette ran a follow-up. River Glen HOA reforms charter after compliance scandal. President resigns. New transparency rules adopted. 2 insurers called me privately, asking for permission to cite the case in their training programs. Morales sent me a copy of the final inspection report stamped, resolved. And life moved on. Lily's lemonade stand returned that spring. No patrols, no warnings, just neighbors stopping to talk again. Evelyn started a community day every first Saturday. No rules, just potluck and stories. Mark joked it was my non-violent coup. I kept the binder, though. Not as a trophy, just as proof that ordinary paperwork can topple arrogance if you're patient enough. If you believe I fought the right way, and that this is how these things should end, say a few words below for your friend who might need courage to stand up too. Subscribe so you see the next case when it comes. And as a responsible neighbor, share this story so others learn the lawful way to fight back. That part's on us. It's been 5 months now. The park grass is coming in thick again. The board meets in open session with real minutes and cameras rolling. Sometimes, I walk past the new sign at dusk, listen to the laughter, and feel something I hadn't in years. Quiet. You spend so long bracing for the next hit, you forget what calm sounds like. Then Lily tugs my sleeve, holding 2 cups of lemonade. "Dad," she says, "think the other neighborhoods need sheriffs too?" I smile. "One at a time, kiddo. One at a time."